The Center, with your host, DC Radical One.
Greetings, Black family, and welcome to On the Wake Up Radio. I am your host, DC Radical One, and you have entered the center. Shout out to our wonderful producer, Cindy Ashby. You can check us out on SoundCloud, YouTube, iTunes Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify, and iHeartRadio at On the Wake Up Radio. First of all, how's everybody doing tonight? I saw mostly brothers at the front. So I'm assuming sisters either not interested in politics or they watching the Oscars or something. Brother Dessalines said he is fatigued, to which I will say the physical is limited. Let me see if I can find some appropriate music. Let's see what this sounds like. Y'all let me know if that's too. I'll make adjustments as needed. Excuse me. Let's see. So let's see who's in the building. We got Brother Dessalines, baby, for they straight black pride. Brother Dessalines, do me a favor. Shoot me an email with your email address so I can shoot you this this lecture so you can preview it. And that'll be on the house because you've been rocking with straight black pride for I don't know how long. So you've always been a supporter. And I'm waiting for brother you got ripped off to, he's been busy this week, so I'm waiting for him to give me a report on the quality of that lecture, and then I'll make it available for sale to the people. Straight Black Pride, brother Tony. BB4 Day Straight Black Pride, brother you got ripped off. BB4 Day Straight Black Pride, brother Kevin. So tonight, what we're going to talk about, we're doing a preview. I haven't done this, I don't think, since 2016. But anyway, 2016, I did a lecture called Election 2016, What's in it for us? What's in it for black people? This is going to be kind of like a mini version of that. What we're going to do is we're going to look at the two major party candidates, excuse me again, and a minor candidate that can affect the race. He can't win just because of the way the two-party system is rigged, but he can affect the race. And so what we're just going to do is we're going to, because this isn't meant to be comprehensive. It's meant to be more like a reminder of who's who, what they've done, what they advocate for, what they said, and for some people, a lot of people, probably introduction to the third candidate. And then probably, what is this? This is March. Probably, when did they, I guess maybe August, we'll kind of do an update once all the nominations are actually official as far as each party candidate, because I believe we're going to talk about Robert F. Kennedy tonight. I believe he's trying to run, if I'm not mistaken, for one of the third parties. I'm not sure if it's Libertarian or, I don't think he's running for Green. I think they're running the same same female they've been running. So when that selection process is secured, and we know, for example, that Biden will be the nominee of the Democrats, because before his speech, I thought the chance of him not being the nominee was high. I think after his speech, they injected him with whatever they injected him with, and he looked more, it sounded more lively. I think there's a higher chance of him being the nominee. And Mr. Trump, got a lot of legal stuff going on, so yeah, that ain't 100%. You know what I'm saying? So that's why this is more of an introductory, preliminary look at the 2024 United States presidential election. Because we don't want to act as if this is the only presidential election that's going on. While I try to adjust my sound, because all of a sudden now everybody wants to send messages and all this other stuff. So with that, brothers and sisters, let's get into it, because I do got a lot of stuff in here. So first and foremost, I'm going to talk about the current president, Mr. Joe Biden. And the reason I want to talk about him is because, he's the current president. And I just want to look at some things, because one of the things that happens is, and peace and blessings to Brother Crow, one of the things that happens is you learn, or you're reminded how politics works when the current person comes in office. And the way you do that is you go back and look at what they said, and you go back and look at what they did, and you see how far what they said is from what they did. And usually for Black people, it's far away. For other people, it's a little bit closer. So we're going to start off with this article from June 1st, 2020. Mr. Biden vows to set up police oversight board if elected, right? So this is before he was elected. All right, let's get into it a little bit. It says, Joe Biden pledged Monday that one of his first actions he would take as president, should he be elected in November, would be to establish a police oversight board. Biden met with political and faith leaders for roughly 90 minutes at Bethel AME Church in Wilmington, Delaware, where he answered questions, delivered remarks, and heard concerns about the ongoing pandemic and the nationwide protests sparked by the murder of George Floyd in Minneapolis. Now let's stop right there. We have to take ourselves back to that time, because it's been a while. A lot of stuff is going on in the world, right? This is the middle of the summer. George Floyd has been murdered. People are outraged. It's hot, not just weather-wise, but hot in America. Racial tensions are high. You still got the whole pandemic thing happening, right? So in the midst of that, he makes this political statement, because yet again, since he's been the vice president and Obama was the president, once again, police murder of Black people has reared its ugly head, and people are up in arms. This is his response. Okay. Says the presumptive Democratic nominee Biden said that if he defeats President Trump in November, he would create the oversight board within the first 100 days in office and address institutional racism. Hate just hides. Biden, who at times lowered his mask he was wearing due to the virus, told attendees it doesn't go away. When you have somebody in power who breathes oxygen into the heat under the rocks, it comes out from under the rocks. Okay? I mean, he's been in office in some capacity for 50 years. But he also used to hang out with former Klansmen. So he should know all about that. However you want to look at it. Let's move forward. It says the former vice president said there should be a change in the way police are trained and suggested, for instance, that when law enforcement officers are confronted with a person without a firearm, but coming at them with a knife or something, police should shoot them in the leg instead of the heart. Now, while that, I have agreed with that and always wondered about that. And I've talked to law enforcement. I forgot what they said. Basically, the center mass is the target, and that's how they train and so forth, so on. And here's what they really said, without saying it. Police can't shoot. Okay. Okay. Shooting at a target that is not moving and shooting at a moving target are not the same thing. And the second thing is let's be honest, a lot of police are cowards. They scared. You see what I'm saying? That's why they're shooting at the biggest target, because they can't shoot and they're scared, right? There are exceptions to this rule. There are some police who go to the range all of the time. Like wherever you live, if you go to the range, which is usually around, not us, there's some people that they go every time you go, they're gonna be there, right? That guy's probably a cop or he's ex-military. The rest of them dudes, man, please, they're scared to death. That's why they're shooting to kill, because they know they're shooting at the biggest thing that you got, which is your chest. It's a reality situation. Nobody wants to come out and say it really publicly, because then people will be looking at the police side eyes. But this is what it is, man. We're gonna deal with reality here. Now, it says Biden stressed the importance of finding a balance between safety and allowing a protest to take place in cities nationwide. Right. Democratic president hopeful meeting with faith and community leaders comes the day after he visited a protest site in Wilmington. They post on social media, Biden encouraged the nation to turn, right? So we're just gonna stop that right there. Remember what the key point was. In his first 100 days, he's gonna vow to set up police oversight board if elected. So we're dealing with facts and not feelings, right? Let's go to the next article. Biden White House puts its police oversight commission on ice. The president promised one during his campaign, but civil rights groups and police union reps both say it wasn't necessary. Now let's stop right there. Who said it wasn't necessary? Civil rights groups. That's what they blaming, right? Civil rights groups and police unions. Let's think about this for a moment. In the midst of a onslaught by the police, civil rights groups say that an oversight board of the police nationally is not needed, and they agree with the police. I just take all the time you need to process this information. I mean, I've done a lot on civil rights organizations, and y'all know how I feel about that by now. I've put up the documentation. Well, they got Suzanne Rice up here. Let's read this article real quick. It says the White House is putting the creation of a National Police Oversight Commission on hold, nixing a campaign pledge made by President Biden to establish one within his first 100 days. He says, based on close, respectful consultation with partners in the civil rights community, the administration made the considered judgment that a police commission at this time would not be the most effective way to deliver on our top priority in this area, which is to sign the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act into law. Susan Rice, director of Domestic Policy Council, said in a statement to Politico. Now, what's interesting is, if I'm not mistaken, Susan Rice was in office with Clinton, right? Now, what people forget about William Jefferson Clinton is that when Clinton came into office, he ran as a centrist. And amongst the things he was doing was, quote unquote, reforming welfare, right? Establishing like that you must work for the money and things like that. And working with Newt Gingrich and other Republicans for a lot of things that you could argue were detrimental to black people, right? And you're attacking us through the use of certain stereotypes. Like, people forget that. And remember, in that same spirit of what was going on in the early 90s, which really was a continuation of the Reagan program that started in the 80s, including, because this is something people don't think about, the basic economic theory of trickle-down economics that was implemented by Ronald Reagan, which is started by Milton Friedman. Y'all, everybody just put an emoji on what type of name is that. That economic theory and those economic policies have never been reversed by any president since Reagan. Obviously not by Reagan because he implemented, not by Bush 1, even though he called it voodoo economics in 1979, right? Not by Clinton for his 8 years, obviously not by Bush 2 for his 8 years, not by Obama for his 8 years, obviously not by Trump because he comes from the business community, and not by Biden. So one thing that has been the same, regardless of all the presidents I named, is the economic policy and the base economic theory that is being accepted. The trickle down economic theory, as it is called, has not changed regardless of who we vote for. Just wanted to bring that up, right? Let me get back to the article. Went off on a little bit of a tangent. Before coming to the decision, the White House consulted with national civil rights organizations and police unions. Both entities made it clear to the administration that they thought a commission was not necessary and likely redundant. Let's stop right there. How is this policy and implementation? And I understand you add more bureaucracy, but hey, whatever. How's it redundant when the police are policing the police in every place? But if you get non-police to police the police, then maybe you might have change. Right? I mean, somebody stop me if I'm tripping here. So I don't understand what this quote civil rights people were talking about, but this doesn't make any sense. But what we're gonna do real quick, because I don't want y'all to say DC is lying. we're gonna pause the music and we're gonna go to the clip when he said it. And we're going to watch Mr. Biden talk about this police oversight board that ain't happening, but was happening when he said it.
Presumptive Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden on Monday promised black community leaders in Delaware he would create a police oversight board within his first 100 days in office, adding that he would look to them to help shape his policies.
I don't mean help to elect me. I'm not asking for that's not what I need help and advice as we go along as to what you think I should and shouldn't be doing.
Biden also said he would soon unveil an economic plan to deal with the disproportionate toll on the Black and Latino communities from the coronavirus outbreak.
The Band-Aid has been ripped off by this pandemic and this president. Nobody can pretend any longer what this is all about. Nobody can pretend who has been carrying this on their back. It's been minorities, it's been blacks, it's been Hispanics.
More than a dozen black leaders met with Biden at Wilmington's Bethel AME Church in his home state of Delaware, all in masks and social distancing. Democratic Congresswoman Lisa Blunt Rochester opened her comments by remembering Biden's late son, Beau, just days after the 5th anniversary of his death, prompting the former vice president to wipe a tear from his eye. She then praised Biden for meeting in person during such a tumultuous time.
We appreciate your even showing up. For those who are out there complaining, we got a president that ain't even showing up, that doesn't even care. Come on.
Biden himself took the opportunity to criticize President Trump for sowing divisiveness in the country.
Hate just hides. Hate just hides. Doesn't go away. And when you have somebody in power who breathes oxygen to the hate under the rocks, it comes out from under the rocks.
Trump has so far made no major public statement to address the growing crisis, but has issued tweets as he remained out of sight in the White House. In a phone call with governors Monday, Trump said the federal government was going to clamp down, quote, very strong on the violence and urged the governors to do the same.
Now, I mean, that sounded good. And the sister, she got all emotional. And she's like, yeah, this other guy doesn't care. He's not even here. He's hiding in the White House. And yeah, so much for that. You know what I'm saying? He showed up. He said what he had to say. All right, cool. Sounds great. But nothing happened. Now, let's take a look at a little bit more of this article. It says, Rice said the administration strongly supports the police reform bill named after Floyd, who was killed last May after Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin pinned his knee to Floyd's neck for 7 minutes, 46 seconds. Chauvin's murder trial for the death of Floyd is ongoing. The White House is working with Congress to swiftly enact meaningful police reform that brings profound, urgent, needed change. The decision to shelve the commission underscores the ways in which campaign promises can clash with the realities of government and potentially trip up a president's agenda. Biden first promised to set up an oversight commission last June, roughly 1 week after Floyd's killing. As numerous cities staged mass protests against the killing of Black people, Biden called for reforms to policing, including a nationwide database of police misconduct and a ban on the use of chokeholds. But he refrained from endorsing the biggest police demands from Black Lives Matter, which we know is a small hat operation, on issues like police liability, and declined to embrace their call to defund the police and reallocate funds to social programs and community priorities. Right? So that's that. That's just a situation. Mr. Biden made a campaign promise. Basically, as soon as he got into office, he's like, yeah, that's not gonna happen. Oh well, my bad. Right? But hey, this is a part of what politics is. And this is why we have to go back and review, because myself personally, I did not remember this. But when I came across it, I said, if I didn't remember, most likely other people didn't remember. Let's talk about it and let's put it on the table. So that's one thing, right? Now, what's the biggest thing that Black people have been talking about? That people talking about no check, no vote, and things like that, right? So we're going to see what Mr. Biden said on reparations. All right, let's check it out. It says Biden back studying reparations as Congress considers bill. Again, this is February 17th, the middle of Black History Month, 2021. This is after Mr. Biden has been selected, about 1 month into his administration. All right, let's take a look at it. It says President Joe Biden's White House is giving its support to studying reparations for Black Americans, boosting Democratic lawmakers who are renewing efforts to create a commission on the issue amid the stark racial disparities highlighted by the COVID pandemic. A House panel heard testimony Wednesday on legislation that will create a commission to examine the history of slavery in the U.S., as well as the discriminatory government policies that affected formerly enslaved Black people and their descendants. The commission would recommend many ways to educate the American public of its findings and suggest appropriate remedies, including financial payments from the government to compensate descendants of enslaved Black people for years of unpaid labor by their ancestors. Now, might I add, here's my thing with reparations, and we're going to have a show on reparations separate. The idea that the payments should only be for unpaid labor, right? Which they should be for unpaid labor. I disagree with. We have pain and anguish. We have physical abuse. We got murder, rape, torture. And somebody needs to pay for that as well. Also, the idea that we should only look at the government to pay for their crimes and not look at, let's say, Lehman Brothers, who we know, Lehman Brothers Bank, had a slave trading operation, which allowed them to get the money to start their investment bank in the first place. I'm just using them because I know that's been documented, right? Other Wall Street entities and other banks, as we start backtracking and see where they came from, these people should pay, right? People who have stock in those entities, they should pay, right? The murder of Black people during the civil rights era, those individual counties, they should pay. Like, so it's not just a matter of the government, the United States government. The United States government paying reparations to Black people opens up the floodgates and sets a legal precedent for other people involved in the greatest crime against humanity to pay. And then it sets a precedent here in America that will allow Black people around the world to start suing people. Because let's be completely honest, if you're an African in North Africa and you were in one part of Africa, but you're in another part of Africa, or you're in India, or you're in China, because your ancestors were enslaved by the Arabs, then all of a sudden you want Saudi Arabia to raise up off that money, UAE and otherwise. So if you want to know why everyone is so against Black people in America getting reparations from the US government, it's because one, sets the precedent and everybody gonna have to raise up. Two, once you start doing the research, the hats will be the main ones having to pay, because they are the ones most documented with being involved, right? So understand, that's where the opposition is coming from. Before they straight Black pride to straight Black saw. I don't think I greeted Raw Eyes of Vital. Raw Vital. I'm struggling today. Raw Eyes of Vital. Greetings to you. Now, let's go back to the article. Now, mind you, this says he backs studying reparations. It didn't say that he backs giving reparations. Those are two different things. It says Biden backs the idea of studying the issue. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki said Wednesday, though she stopped short of saying that he would sign a bill if it clears Congress. Hey, might as well stop there before you start lying, right? Now, it says He certainly will support a study of reparations, Psaki said. He understands we don't need a study to take action right now on systemic racism, so he wants to take actions with his own government in the meantime. Biden captured the Democratic presidential nomination and ultimately the White House with the strong support of Black voters, particularly, though not noted here, Black women, as he campaigned against the backdrop of the biggest reckoning on racism in a generation in the wake of the George Floyd murder. I think the Trayvon Martin was the same level. That's not quite a generation, but okay if y'all say so. Biden backed the idea of studying reparations for the descendants of enslaved Africans, but now as he tries to win congressional support for other agenda items, including a massive relief bill, he faces a choice of how aggressively to push the idea. Even with Democrats controlling both chambers of Congress and the White House, passing a reparations bill could prove difficult. Even with Democrats controlling both chambers of Congress and the White House. How many chambers of Congress are there? 2. How many did they control at the time? 2. Okay. The proposal, okay, at the White House passing a reparations bill could prove difficult. The proposal has languished in Congress for more than 3 decades. For more than 3 decades. How many decades? 3 decades. Winning fresh attention in 2019, only after Democrats won control of the House. So, since last century, between, let's go back, more than 3 decades, Clinton, Bush, that's 2, not 1 but 2 Clinton administrations, 2 times Bush, Trump, Biden. Have I missed anybody? And Obama, my bad. I missed it. So, all right, let's review. 2 Clinton administrations, 2 Bush administrations, 2 Obama administrations, Trump administration, and a Joe Biden administration. Absolutely zero progress whatsoever on reparations. All right. Now, brother, you got ripped off. Mentioned something that hold up. Brother Kevin says every time they mention study of reparations, it means no reparations. right. Let's put that up. Let's put this up. And I'm laughing because it's not funny. I'm laughing because it's true. Right? Well, brother, you got ripped off. You had a statement, but I don't see it. I missed it. But I believe the brother was talking about the racial disparities that Mr. Biden said he's going to fight, which he helped implement with, because again, we're reading people's record. Mr. Joe Biden is the author of the 94 crime bill, which set in motion mass incarceration. And now, 30 years later, Mr. Biden going to tell us that he's going to help right the wrongs of mass incarceration, even though we saw when Mr. Trump came in office, he was the one pardoning people. Okay? That's just what it is. We all remember Kim Kardashian sitting up there with him, and he's like, oh yeah, I'm pardon these people, and pardon these people, and pardon these people. I know for a fact that there are other people who were trying to get to him to pardon some of our warriors who have been in since the 70s and the 60s that were doing race work. I know for a fact that people were talking with Mr. Trump's people about this, not Mr. Biden's people, Mr. Trump's people about this, right? So, whether we like it or not, one person's responsible for the problem. The other person is at least putting a Band-Aid on it. I ain't saying he brought no solution. I'm saying he put a Band-Aid on it. So, we're dealing with facts, not feelings here, right? Now, Brother Crow said that Biden has not pardoned no black man or woman. I I saw something that said that he's like pardoned almost no one. So I guess he's waiting till he leaves, you know, do the Clinton thing. So Clinton left, he pardoned all types of people, and like he signed it, put it on his desk, and left. So maybe Biden's gonna do a Clinton, right? Now, did I have a? Oh, my bad. This is the video that I want. I want to show the video of Mr. Biden, because you notice in these articles, we started off with black people and we started moving down to black and Latino. So what I want to do, I want to look at this clip that everybody should remember, but I made it longer so we can see it in context. I want people to say DC taking stuff out of context and telling lies, because we dealing with documentation. So what we're going to do, we're going to look at this clip where Mr. Biden was talking to some civil rights leaders and some other black people about what we need to be doing, basically.
Just based on what we do, you're going to see more coming your way. And not only that, within the White House as well. Cedric is the best. Cedric's been with me from the beginning. And Cedric is going to be overseeing a great deal of this, and not all his responsibility, but he's in every single meeting. He's an assistant to the president. He's in every single meeting in the White House, period. And so what we're going to be doing here is making sure that we have diverse hiring, not only and for the main cabinet position and the sub-cabinet positions, but down the line. It's going to make a big difference, and within the White House as well. Assistant to the president, there's only 6 of those slots. It matters. And by the way, I think you're going to see, I always kid Kamala by say this, but we're going to have more women than men, as it's looking like now. Okay, that's good, because I'm surrounded by women smarter than me, starting off with my wife and my sister. But all kidding aside, this is going to be fully across the board. I'm going to keep the commitment that I said. And here's the thing. And Reverend Al, I think you're right about this. It matters what a president says. And if you notice, I am not mincing my words when I speak about what I plan on doing as president of the United States. The only thing I'm not doing is I'm not engaging in retribution. I am not deciding that the way to win is to go after hate with hate. We have to convince people. We have to move them. And one of the overwhelming reasons I won, by the way, is because we took on racism in suburbia. White women overwhelmingly voted with me, and black women were the 2 places where it was overwhelming, because we spoke to those concerns. And Vanita, you know what I'm talking about. You and I have talked before. I don't carry around a stamp on my head saying progressive and I'm AOC, but I have more of a record of getting things done in the United States Congress than anybody you know. Anybody you know of getting things accomplished. And that sounds so self-serving. I know that. But this is going to really be hard. This is going to really be hard. And let me conclude and turn it over to Kamala, who says, what the hell am I doing with this guy right now? But all kidding aside, I've known you my whole life, most of you. I've worked with you my whole life, most of you. I've been around doing this for a long time. I don't always get it right, but I always take responsibility. When I get it wrong, I acknowledge I got it wrong. But my overarching objective, if we cannot make significant progress on racial equity, this country is doomed. It is doomed, not just because of African Americans, but because by 2040, this country is going to be minority white European. You hear me? Minority white European. And you guys are going to have to start working more with Hispanics, who make up a larger portion of the population than y'all do in terms of raw numbers. We're going to have to be working with a whole group of people that, in fact, are the single most diverse democracy in American history and anywhere in the world. And we got to figure out how to unify this country.
We all heard that, right? We all heard that, right? Mr. Biden told us, and let me find my music. All right. Here we go. Mr. Biden told us that we're going to have to start working with Hispanics because they outnumber us. Okay, cool. That makes sense. But here's the problem that Mr. Biden didn't mention. Who's the reason why the Hispanics outnumber black people? Let's think about this, right? Mr. Open Border, look, remember, we just talked about this, a week ago, a couple of weeks ago? The governor of Texas has his people putting up razor wire and building up fences. Mr. Biden has people taking down the fences that the Texas governor's putting up. And then Mr. Biden tells us, you got to work with the Hispanics because they outnumber you. Well, I guess they do because you're letting them in the back door. And the Democrats have said that they want to get the people who are illegal to join the military and they'll fast track their citizenship. But for those of us who have studied history, know that one of the reasons that the Roman Empire fell, possibly the most powerful European empire prior to the British Empire in history, fell because they start outsourcing their military. So you want to outsource your military to people who sneak into your country illegally, and you tell us who have been here for hundreds of years and served for free that we got to work with these people who came in illegally? Are you serious right now? So that's what he told us. And he's the reason that our number. And what's the other reason our numbers are low? Let's talk about it. He advocates for abortion. We've lost at least 20 million black people to abortion since 1972. I'm gonna say that again. 20 million black people. Since that's 2 generations ago, we could have 30 to 40 million more black people in America. Conceivably, our numbers would have doubled. And then he wouldn't be talking to us like that because it'd be 80 to 100 million black people. Right? But the Democrats have advocated abortion for us since around for my whole lifetime. Let's think about what he's saying to us, why we're in the position we're in. It's because his party, and he's been in office. I don't even know when he came in. He's been in office literally as long as I can remember. And no Democrat has said, hey, you know what? We advocate a woman's right to choose, but this is disproportionately lowering the population of black people. Maybe we need to study that. Because if we're being honest, the advocacy of abortion, the bringing in of drugs into the black community, and the bringing in of guns into a black community has been a slow, covert genocide. Keeping it 100, right? So I just wanted to play that because I just wanted to remind us to how people talk to our so-called leaders. And then let me make sure I cover this part. He got CI7, the informant, sitting up there talking. His man Al. And Al, blah, blah, blah. And we got Mark Morial, who we might have to look at twice to make sure he's even black. Being completely honest, if you're looking at him. So we got CI7, the confidential informant, a dude that may or may not be black, and some other people we don't know of, and he's telling them what he's going to do once he get in office, because that was a month before he got in office, and then he's telling us what we need to do, and the main thing he's telling us that we need to do is get along with people that's coming across here illegally. Somebody stop me when I'm lying. Right? And this is one of 3 people running for election. Now, you as an individual, you can tell me how you think things are going since he's come in office, right? All I know is every time I go to the store, things cost too much. This is how bad it is. Things cost too much. Even if you have a job where you're getting a raise, the raise is not even covering. It's not covering anything because every time you go to the store, something costs more. And then, unless you live in a house, more than likely, if you live in an apartment or something, your rent going up. Your rent going up, your food going up. People coming across illegally, crime going up. Right? You live in New York. I might do a whole live stream on that. You got the illegals up there beating up the police, the governor bringing out the National Guard, people pushing people onto the train tracks, getting ran over by a train. Like, it's total chaos up there. And that's on Mr. Biden's watch. That's his governor. One minute they were saying she soft on crime. The next minute she bringing out the National Guard. Because things have gotten that far out of hand. These sanctuary cities, the crime has gotten out of hand to the point where the Democratic people are like, all right, this is out of hand, bro. We got to do something here. But again, Mr. Open Borders will create this problem. These problems, right? So, because I was supposed to be doing this for less than 2 hours, and I'm going completely on a tangent here, but I'm trying to just give the information without getting all heated and whatnot. But when I see people speaking condescendingly towards black people, you know what I'm saying? It gets my blood boiling. And when I see Negroes just sit there and take it like some suckers, and then to see, like I said, to see the informant up in there, because I forgot he was there. But let's go back, because I didn't forget. Right, we was on 3 decades for reparations. So let's move forward, right? Because we're on 3 decades. All right, we're gonna study reparations. Politico, and I don't see a date on this, but it says Biden privately tells lawmakers not to expect much on reparations legislation. The president weighed in on race relations more bluntly than any of his predecessors during his speech Tuesday, but he also set expectations low for congressional action. So in other words, he gave us some strong rhetoric, which for them is strong, but for us is, it's like whatever. You want to hear something? You want to hear some strong talk on the reality of it? You know what I'm saying? Go to warnhorizon.com. You know what I'm saying? Go really get something strong. How it says, Joe Biden was more blunt about racism than perhaps any president before him. And then many in the crowd expected in his remarks commemorating the 100 years since the Tulsa Race Massacre Tuesday. I appreciate them for calling it what it was, not a riot, it was a massacre. He called out how through the years there have been members in the elected office who were very public about their association or membership with the KKK. Representative Cori Bush said in the parking lot of the Greenwood Cultural Center, he set up the scene in his speech to take us into what has been happening at the time, and that was very powerful. I was glad to hear it. Now stop right there. I'm gonna need y'all to help me out because I can't remember what was the dude's name. Bird, right? That was his man that was formerly in the KKK. Somebody look up that information for me and make sure I'm correct. But one of Biden's buddies in the Senate, Bird, who was also, if I'm not mistaken, was a mentor to Hillary Clinton, is a former Klansman, right? So for him to come up there and he say the strong rhetoric, blah blah blah, and yada yada yada, racism this and Ku Klux Klan that, but your man's the Klan though. You see how they play us? And we have these bootlickers sit up there and talk about, oh my God, this was strong and this and that, yada yada. But bruh, come on, man. Come on, man. Come on, man. We got to stop falling for the okie doke. Or if we don't fall for the okie doke, we can at least keep it real and say, hey, falling for the okie doke because, to be honest, I prefer the undercover racism to the out racism. See, me, I'm the opposite. Let's just keep it 100. Everybody put it on the table. Say, look, I don't like this, this, and this. I don't like you. I don't like you because of this. I don't like you because you do this. And then at that point, you make him begin some negotiating. But if we all sit up here lying and pretending, we'll never get a solution to any problem because we all sitting up here lying. We're lying about the problem, the nature of the problem, who started the problem, who benefits from the problem, how we can resolve the problem, all of the above. I don't care what we talking about. You ain't gonna love your way out of this. Martin Luther King was 100% wrong. You know what I'm saying? That's not gonna happen. So we got to deal with reality and not think and act as children. Now, let's go back to this. But some attendees noted what they considered a glaring omission. Any mention of reparations for the survivors of the massacre and their descendants, some of whom have sued the city and the state for compensation, and a full-throated endorsement of H.R. 40, which would create a commission to study reparations. The bill passed out the House Judiciary Committee in April for the first time since it was first introduced in 1989. Okay, to give y'all a context of how far back 1989 is. 1989, like Public Enemy's third album had been out. Tupac had not recorded a solo album. I don't think his album came out to 1990, I think. Biggie was undiscovered. Bush 1 was president. That's 10 years before the Matrix movie was made. You know what I'm saying? I just wanted to give y'all some context of how long ago 1989 is, right? Says as a candidate, Biden has said he supported a commission on reparations, but the administration has yet to endorse the actual bill. After his speech Tuesday, the president met with members of the Congressional Black Caucus who brought up the need for H.R. 40, which is named after the 40 acres and a mule promise that now symbolize the lack of support formerly enslaved people received from the federal government. According to those involved in conversations, Biden let them down gently. Right? He says he didn't agree with what we're doing, said Brenda Lawrence, Democrat from Michigan, the second vice chair of the CBC. He did talk about his plate being full. We're trying to get the infrastructure bill passed and that he wanted to make sure that he could get that through before he took on anything else. Biden's biggest concern on H.R. 40, Lawrence said, was getting it through the Senate. The bill also hasn't even been scheduled for a full floor vote on the House, where it has 188 sponsors. Tuesday in Tulsa illustrated the dichotomy that has come to define Biden's approach to issues on race and racial equity. No president has so forcefully called out the nation's sort of history. At the same time, Biden has downplayed the likelihood of legislative action, sidestepping calls for him to embrace rules reforms in the Senate to allow easier passage of relevant bills. In addition to expressing fear that H.R. 40 would die in the Senate behind the scenes, Biden also announced on Tuesday that he was handing off his voting rights portfolio to Vice President Kamala Harris. Now, we know, one, that Kamala Harris has stated publicly, I've shown that clip more than once, that she wasn't in favor of doing anything specifically for black people. So, there's that, right? But it's interesting because, and salute to John Public, I didn't see you come in. What's interesting is that basically they said he has talked the strongest and has done the least. Right? That's what the article says. So if we're trying to measure where we are with Biden, then I'm going to move on to Mr. Trump because I took up too much time with Mr. Biden. That pretty much sums it up. He has talked the strongest. He's used the strongest rhetoric, but has done the least for black people. And he's one of those people who says the magic black and. Black people in the 21st century have suffered more from the black and than the times back in the 60s or after the 60s when the whole benign neglect thing. And when you say, bro, what's the black hand? The black and is black and Hispanic, black and minority, black and LGBTQ, black and whatever else they can slap on black and women, right? He talked about that. Whatever they can slap on black next to something else, some other quote unquote minority, the minorities are going to get the large end and the blacks are going to get the short end of the stick. And says Byrd was a congressman out of West Virginia and organized a local chapter of the, here we go, KKK in 1940s. Right. Just wanted to be sure that. Thank you, brother. So, again, Mr. Byrd, the Democrat, and friend of Mr. Biden and mentor of Miss Clinton. So, that's that. Okay. I think we covered Mr. Biden pretty thoroughly. Actually, we spent more time on him than I wanted to, but hey, it is what it is. We still gonna get down to 2 hours regardless. So we can get that out of the way. If you want to see Mr. Biden's fact sheet from February 6, 2024, that is available at whitehouse.gov. It says the Biden-Harris administration advances equity and opportunity for Black Americans and communities across the country. And you can read what they have to say about what they have done, in addition to what we have done here, right? Now, let's go to our next person, Mr. Trump. And we're going to start off where we left off with reparations. So just get straight to the point. Mr. Trump on reparations. I don't see it happening. All right, here we go, right here. You want to know the difference? This is the difference between hidden / nice racism, where he let it, where they said he let us down easy. Mr. Trump is straight to the point. He's like, nah, bro. he's like, come on, man. I'm not gonna sell y'all a bill of goods. Ain't happening, Captain. Right? Says President Trump on Monday said he doesn't believe the federal government will pursue reparations for descendants of slaves, an idea that has gained traction among some Democrats. Quote unquote, I don't see it happening. Trump said in an exclusive interview with The Hill. The House Judiciary Committee held the first hearing on the issue in a decade earlier this month. A handful of Democratic presidential candidates seeking to challenge Trump in 2020 have broached the idea. He says, quote unquote, I think it's a very unusual thing, Trump said on the possibility of reparations. You have it's been a very interesting debate. I don't see it happening. No. The House Judiciary Subcommittee on the Constitution, Civil Rights, and Civil Liberties held a hearing to examine, through open and constructive discourse, the legacy of the transatlantic slave trade, its continuing impact on the community, and the path to restorative justice. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell from Kentucky. We ain't even got to say what he said because we already know he's from Kentucky. Threw cold water on the idea of reparations earlier this month. I don't think reparations for something that happened 150 years ago, for whom none of us currently living are responsible, is a good idea. Why not? Like, let's be honest here. If a person is a so-called if they've committed crimes during the quote-unquote Holocaust, right? They wheeled in people who were like 3 minutes from death and wheeled them in and tried those people, even though that happened last century. So because they're 3 minutes from death, nobody should pay, because people here benefited from the crimes that were committed, and we have the documentation for some of the people, their descendants, and the companies that they started, which are still in existence. So what are you saying? Right? Let's get to it. Says, we tried to deal with our original sin of slavery by fighting a civil war, by passing landmark civil rights legislation. We elected an African-American president. False. You did not elect an African-American president. You selected a mulatto who had no connection with the black community. That's what happened. Let's set the record straight here. Mr. Obama did not grow up around black people. Not from Detroit, from Chicago, Mississippi, Maryland, Jacksonville, or any other place, Compton, Watts, South Central, Oakland. He's not from any of those places where black people tend to live here in America. I know I left some places out. He's not from any of those places. He didn't grow up around any of those people. So he's not one of us. But I digress. Says Representative Sheila Jackson Lee reintroduced legislation this year, initially crafted by former Representative John Conyers. They calls for they just calling for a study on reparations. Ain't even talking about doing that. Like, let's just look at it. They're like, nah, bro. In the 2020 Democratic primary, Senator Kamala Harris, Senator Bernie Sanders, and Representative Beto O'Rourke were among those who voiced support for a bill commissioning a study on reparations. So, to the surprise of absolutely no one, Mr. Trump said, I don't see that happening. What's interesting is Mr. Trump didn't say, I don't support it. I'm not with it. That's stupid. He didn't say none of that. He answered like somebody, like, you know how your homeboys file? And somebody asked you, are y'all going to do something? Hey, man, can y'all help me do something? And they were like, yeah, probably not. You know what I'm saying? He don't say that. He don't want to do it. He just said, yeah, it's probably not gonna happen. You know how my man is. Yeah. I don't think so. That personal, right? He did it. You know, it was real slick politically because he didn't make a statement on how he feels about the issue. He simply said he doesn't see it happening. And based upon it not happening for 30 years, yeah, well, you're right. We don't see it happening either because it hasn't happened. Basically, so since this has been in Congress since I was a teenager, but the idea goes back at least, well, in reality, it goes back to slavery. It goes back to the whole 40 acres and a mule. Right? Now, you read Secret Relationship Between Blacks and Jews, Volume 2, and you'll get the understanding of what happened to our 40 acres and a mule, who brokered the deal to destroy that, how we got flim-flammed out of it, the whole thing, right? There was a time right after the Civil War when the whites of that day were willing to give resources to our ancestors to pay a debt for us coming into the war on their side, to allow them to win the war, to allow there to be a United States of America, as opposed to a United States of America and a Confederate States of America, which is where we were headed. Now, I'm not going to get into all that because that's a whole nother discussion. But those who have the Secret Relationship Between Black Leaders and Small Hats lecture, you can get that. If you do not have the Secret Relationship Between Black Leaders and Small Hat lecture, you can go, brother, you got ripped off, you can put that link in there. You can go to warnerhorizon.com. Now, I'm going to be completely honest. Y'all know I do lectures. Right? Y'all know Brother Genie, that's my folks. That Secret Relationship, the best lecture I've ever seen. Mind you, seeing Steve Coakley in person, seeing Dr. Khalid Abdul Muhammad helped secure Dr. Khalid Abdul Muhammad. Seeing a lot of lectures for Minister Farrakhan. Seeing, I mean, you name it. A lot of people I've seen. Probably the best lecture informationally I've ever seen. That, right? You gotta give props for props to do. Now, that is that's what Mr. Trump said on reparations. Now, what I want to do is I want to look at his platinum plan, but before that, I want to look at him speaking about the George Floyd situation as that was going on. So we're going to do, pause the music, and we're just going to check out Mr. Trump talking about the George Floyd situation.
Our nation's deepest condolences and most heartfelt sympathies to the family of George Floyd. A terrible event, terrible, terrible thing that happened. I've asked that the Department of Justice expedite the federal investigation into his death and do it immediately, do it as quickly as absolutely possible. It's a local situation, but we're also making it into a federal situation, and it's a terrible thing. We all saw what we saw, and it's very hard to even conceive of anything other than what we did see. It should never happen, should never be allowed to happen, a thing like that. But we're determined that justice be served. And I spoke to members of the family, terrific people, and will be reporting as time goes by. We think that we also have to make the statement, and it's very important, that we have peaceful protesters and support the rights for peaceful protesters. We can't allow a situation like happened in Minneapolis to descend further into lawless anarchy and chaos, and we understand that very well. It's very important, I believe, to the family, to everybody, that the memory of George Floyd be a perfect memory. Let it be a perfect memory. The looters should not be allowed to drown out the voices of so many peaceful protesters. They hurt so badly what is happening, and it's so bad for the state and for that great city. So we are working very closely with the Justice Department. We're working with local law enforcement. We're working with everybody, and we're speaking with the family. And hopefully everything can be fairly taken care of. I understand the hurt. I understand the pain. People have really been through a lot. The family of George is entitled to justice, and the people of Minnesota are entitled to live in safety. Law and order will prevail. The Americans will honor the memory of George and the Floyd family. It's very important to us. It's very important to me to see that everything is taken care of properly. It's a horrible, horrible situation. And so we'll be reporting back in due course and as quickly as possible.
Now, I'm going to say this about that clip. My interpretation of that clip is this is a leader saying to his people, not to black people. He was talking about black people, but he was saying to his people, we're going to have to sacrifice one of our own here, buddy. I'm trying to win an election. This guy's running around killing people on TV for no reason. Look, sorry. We're going to have to sacrifice one of our own here. Can't have this chaos. Got this pandemic thing already happening. You people running around killing people for no good reason. Hey, that guy's going to have to take one for the team. It was a pragmatic statement. And he spoke to two people at the same time. Right? He said George Floyd needs justice. We have to have law and order. He told the two different people right there. George Floyd needs justice. I got to sacrifice one of our own. I love the cops. I love all that stuff. Love, white nationalists, but those got to go. Law and order means, oh, yeah, the rioting and stuff, that's not going to happen. Yeah, I'm going to take care of that. So, despite Trump not being a politician, Trump is very much a politician. And as much as people want to vilify him for his intellect or lack thereof, he shows you in that clip, that's why I used it, that he has the capacity and the understanding of how to talk to multiple people at the same time, which is, it's a unique skill that politicians need, but not every politician has, right? And you have to really pay attention to people that can do that, because to be honest, those type of people are dangerous. Those type of people can be beneficial, but they can be dangerous because, again, they, you know what I'm saying? You got to listen twice, or you gonna catch up on the wrong thing here, and will latch on to the wrong thing and get confused, right? So, what I want to look at is Trump's platinum plan that he had put out, which I never fully looked at the time. Now, I don't know if everybody remembers, but when he was meeting with like, and y'all know how I feel about the celebrities. But at this point, literally the only people that we publicly have representing us are celebrities or bootlicking Negroes. So the bootlicking Negroes are pretty much in the Democratic camp. So Trump decided to meet with the celebrities. And one of the celebrities he met with was Ice Cube. Now, I don't know if y'all remember how Ice Cube got attacked by people, by black women. Celebrity black women attacked him for meeting with Trump. Again, this is a negotiation. There are two sides here. You're negotiating with one of them to see what you can get. So then you can go and negotiate with the other one and see what you can get, right? Those of us who are sports fans, we know all about this. Those who are in the business world, you know all about this, right? What you call it? NFL free agency is coming up. If your favorite player is a free agent and he does not meet with other teams beside the team he's playing for, he's an idiot, right? It's plain and simple. Because the more people he can get to engage in the negotiation, the better outcome, the better deal he can get, right? But if you don't negotiate and you take the first deal, you may miss out on something. So I say all that to say, let's look at what was on the table for Trump's platinum plan. And then we're going to listen to him talk about it. And here's the thing. I have absolutely no idea if this is still even on the table. I don't know if anybody asked him. I don't know if anybody's going to ask him. But I just want to look and see what, I'll put it like this. I ain't going to say what we missed, what I missed, right? And see if it was of any benefit whatsoever. So, all right, let's check it out. Says the Platinum Plan, President Trump's pillars. Says opportunity by achieving historic employment levels for Black Americans, as well as increasing access to capital for new investments. President Trump has been committed to ensuring all Black Americans can achieve the American dream. Okay, standard political rhetoric. Yeah, okay, cool, whatever. Says security. By signing into law the celebrated First Step Act, President Trump has brought common sense criminal justice reform to the American people for the first time in decades, while ensuring that our streets and communities are safe for families and business owners. Now, let's stop right here. At the time he was saying this, Black people really wasn't crime, whatever. We weren't really worried about it, right? You look at now, I don't know about where y'all live, but here in DC, they just passed an omnibus crime bill in the city because the young people frankly been pretty much out of control. If you listen to my radical thoughts, I predicted this really a couple of months ago. I didn't release it until February. What's coming down, what I see coming down the pike this summer, as far as the crackdown on crime and the focus on our young people as being the quote unquote criminal element and how they're going to recenter that on us. Hey, it's coming. Hopefully I'm wrong. But, I don't think so. Now it says prosperity. As the first president to provide long-term funding to historically Black colleges and universities, this administration continues to seek immediate and generational achievement for Black Americans. Now, here's the thing. It was interesting because I remember having this conversation years ago with a brother who he went to a HBCU. He was part of a fraternity. He had worked at a HBCU. And he was telling me at the time, this is when Obama was president. He's like, yeah, man. And Obama, people don't know, he helped cut funding for HBCUs and yada, yada, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, hold up, what? I didn't know at the time. And he brought me the documentation. So, hey, it is what it is. What's Trump's motivation? This is what I think Trump has done, or had done at that time. Because his base was against open borders and was for like straight deporting people, Trump made the political calculus that he would rather deal with the people he knew, which is black people in America, because we've been here a long time. Let's be honest, white people kind of know us as much as they complain. They kind of know where we at, what we think, what we do. You know what I'm saying? Trump has made at that time. Now, I don't know if he's still going to make the same political calculus. Greetings to Lord Bell. But at that time, he made the political calculus that he would rather deal with the devil he know, black people in America, as opposed to the devil he doesn't know, other random assorted quote unquote minorities that you need in order to be able to win an election. Because again, and I forgot that I didn't talk about this, but I got to remind people about this. We do not directly elect the president. I'm gonna say that again. The American people, according to the Constitution, do not directly elect the president of the United States. The Electoral College exists. We make our selection, and the majority of those votes go to one of the candidates, and then the person who is authorized to then be the elector goes and make their vote for the president in our name. From my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, there is nothing that states that the person must vote for the people that we put in there, right? Again, the Electoral College is in the United States Constitution. Understand? So the idea that we're directly voting for the president of the United States is not correct. And so this is how you get situations like George Bush, Al Gore, and situations like Joe Biden, Trump won, where you have, and I forgot, and if I'm not mistaken, Trump Clinton, if I'm not mistaken, where you can have less popular vote and win the election, right? So for example, a person can win, say, California and New York, because they're the most populous states, and build up a lead there, but lose because they lose Texas, Florida, Arkansas, the entire South, you know what I'm saying, which generally just votes as a block. And then some other states like some of the Midwest, like North Dakota, South Dakota, you can run those states and lose the popular vote and win the presidency because of the Electoral College. And that's if everything's on the up and up. That's still possible. Just mathematically, that's still possible. And again, we don't, many times, now people have started researching it lately, but many times we don't even know who the selectors are, right? We don't even know who these people are many times. And I don't even know when they even determine who these people are. And I know they choose them by party affiliation, but again, there's nothing that guarantees that this person is going to go and do what we have elected for them to do. We just have to understand that part, because I don't know what they teach now, but they taught it to us then, but they didn't emphasize it. When I was in school, they taught it to us, but they didn't emphasize it, and you just kind of forget. You know what I'm saying? But when somebody explains it to you, you start wondering, like, who agreed to this process. Hey, it's been like that since the beginning. Now, now that I've digressed, back to Mr. Trump's plan. Says fairness, as demonstrated through his actions to initiate investment into opportunity zones, as well as address health disparities, wage gaps, and necessary education reforms. President Trump works every day to advance a fair and just America for the Black community. Now, first of all, I'm gonna stop right here. What is the one thing, right? Because we're talking about Trump, and Trump is a white nationalist. Let's not make no mistake. Let's not sugarcoat it. Trump's a white nationalist. But what is Trump doing here that other people never want to do? Says the Platinum Plan, right? Says President Trump promised to Black America. Did Trump say Black and? This is not the plan for Black and. This is a plan for Black people. Whether we agree with it or not, we might think the plan stinks. But at least he paid somebody to come up with a plan for Black people or to Black people, or however you want to, whether you think it's a marketing scheme. But just by doing that, he's ahead of the game. You know what I'm saying? Just by not adding and to Black. Again, for me, it's political calculus. Right? Your people generally, his base generally doesn't support LGBT. Now, I know when you say that, it sounds weird, but I've seen these people out protesting the push for LGBT in their schools. They do not support this stuff. Once it got thrown in their face and brought to their schools, they had a whole different attitude about this thing, right? So if he's not going to support that, he's not going to support the illegals, although he will court the Hispanics that are here legally, then you start running out of people that you need for support. So the political calculus takes you to who? Takes you to Black people. Because it's just like, I'm going to use sports analogy again. It's like if you're in the same division with a football team, right? And you take a good player off of their team that's a free agent and you sign them to your team, you have weakened your opponent and strengthened your team. So his political calculus says, if I can get a percentage of Black people to vote for me that would have voted for Biden, I weakened him, I've strengthened myself. That's just all it is. It's political calculus, right? Now, says President Trump's promise to Black America. 3 million new jobs for the Black community. Well, we don't know because he ain't win. Says give Black churches the ability to compete for federal resources for their community. Now, you know me, I don't agree with that because, yeah, I mean, the Black church got plenty of money and that money ain't trickling down. But if you're going to look for organizations in the Black community, it's hard to bypass the Black church because people, they're going to be the first one to complain and tell you about how many people they organize to vote for you. So it is what it is. That's something we got to do. We've got to take the power of that out of the hands of the church and bring it to the people or some other race-based organizations so we can have a constituency to be represented at the table, right? Creating 500,000 new Black-owned businesses. Now, hold up. Listen, there's a lot of stuff you can disagree with. But you know what you can't disagree with? 500,000 new Black-owned businesses and increase access to capital in Black communities by $500 billion. Let's stop. Let's stop right here. Let's be honest. And I've talked about this before, and I'm a sometime this year, I don't know when, I want to do a state of the race lecture in front of the people, and so I can put the documentation of where we are economically here in America and around the world. The vast majority at this time of so-called Black businesses are not even small businesses. Because if you look up the definition of what small business is and you look at the type of revenue they have to generate and the number of people that they have to employ, at this moment, the vast majority of our businesses are micro businesses. So allowing or opening up half a trillion, $500 billion in capital for Black businesses could greatly change our economic outlook here in this country. But you know what? He didn't win, so we'll never know, right? Regardless of what you think happened or who did this or that and whatever, in the scoreboard in the scorebook on the scoreboard, he lost. So we never saw this. But again, this is worth looking into, and this is worth us thinking about, because this, again, those of us who are believers in Malcolm X and Marcus Garvey and their philosophies, why would we not look at somebody who say they're going to open up capital to allow us to build Black businesses and expand on Black business? Because has Mr. Biden, is that in his platform? Probably not, because the civil rights movement, in reality, part of their agenda of the civil rights movement is to not allow for us to economically compete in this country. Because most of the civil rights movements are funded by the small hats. Right? Now, let's look at the other part. It says immigration policy that protects American jobs. Bruh, come on, man. Come on, man. I'm just to the point where, like, if you even thinking about closing the border, I gotta take a look at it. I can't speak for nobody else. Let's just be honest. Right now, as much as people, no one talks about it until 60 Minutes talked about it. Right now, the number one people coming illegally across the border is China. But these people tell us that China is the enemy of the United States. But you're allowing these people to illegally come across the border? Really? Are you serious right now? Anyway, advance home ownership opportunities and enhance financial literacy for the Black community. I mean, we got people that talk about financial literacy all day, every day. Right? Yeah, let us tell it. I mean, let them tell it. You know, let Boyce Watkins tell us we just financially illiterate. But that financial literacy, along with that $500 billion, I mean, that works better together than only the financial literacy, but about the $500 billion. Says onshore manufacturing to advance jobs and develop opportunities. Again, if you're actually doing manufacturing in your company, my bad. I forgot the important part. Excuse me. And develop opportunities for Black-owned businesses and manufacturing. We don't, bruh. America's not in manufacturing, so we know we're not in manufacturing right now. How beneficial would that be? It goes without saying. So I'm just saying there are good points and good merits to these programs, and now we need to get somebody to the table to see. First, let's analyze it. Let's take the parts that we agree with. Let's see if we can even increase the money, right? And then the parts we don't disagree with, because I'm just highlighting some of the things because we passed an hour and a half. This is something as Black people we should at least look at. And if nothing else, if we don't do nothing else, we should at least look at this, make corrections and whatnot, or a suggestion and whatnot, and then take that to Biden and say, can you do better than this? Again, it's a negotiation. And it only makes sense to do that. So I'm going to play this clip real quick. I think it's only 2 minutes long of Trump, and he talks about this platinum plan.
Decades, Democrat politicians like Joe Biden have taken Black voters for granted. They made you big promises before every election, and then the moment they got to Washington, they abandoned you and they sold you out. The Democrat Party used you and they lied to you every single time. You know it better than anybody else knows it. The Democrats will always take back the vote. And I'm here today to announce a brand new plan to deliver more opportunity, more security, more fairness, and more prosperity to Black communities. We call it the Platinum Plan. Platinum Plan. And that's a contract with Black Americans, and it's going to be something that people talk about for a long time to come. If you vote Republican over the next 4 years, we will create 3 million new jobs for the Black community, open 500,000 new Black-owned businesses, increase access to capital in Black communities by $500 billion, build up peaceful and safer urban neighborhoods with the highest standards of, and you know this, of policing. We want the highest standards. We have to have highest standards of policing. Bring even greater fairness to the justice system. We did criminal justice reform. We remember that. Even greater, we will create a national clemency project to right wrongful prosecutions and to pardon individuals who have reformed their life.
So, I mean, the Platinum Plan, you know? I'm just saying it's worth taking a look at and do a comparative analysis. So, that's Mr. Trump. That's the kind of the Mr. Trump that I'm not gonna lie, I forgot about because I don't know what it is. It seems like it's been forever since Trump's been president. These last 4 years been it been rough. I can't speak for everybody, but for your brother here, it's man, it's been a struggle. So, last but not least, we're going to get into our third candidate, who I believe will be running independent. Now, if I'm not mistaken, and I could be wrong, so y'all could correct me, I believe initially Mr. Kennedy, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., was going to run as a Democrat, or was considering running as a Democrat. And the Democratic Party pretty much said that they, you know, they're not having a contest. Like Mr. Biden is going to run. That's it. Ain't nothing else to talk about. So now, currently he's running as an independent. I believe he may end up taking one of these third-party nominations, although we will have to see. And that's why this is just the initial discussion that we'll have on this. And we will, like I said, probably August, September, whatever, we will come back to this issue when everybody's officially nominated and officially in the race. Now, let me say this. I do not believe in a two-party system that the United States has that a third-party individual can win. However, much like Ross Perot, a third-party individual can affect who wins, right? We all forget about Ross Perot. Secondly, Mr. Kennedy has a name that rings out in the history of American politics, right? His uncle was a former president who was assassinated, John F. Kennedy. Let's think about this. John F. Kennedy's assassination occurred around the time where he was trying to stop Israel from gaining nuclear weapons. BB 48 777 9311, and after the time of the Cuban Missile Crisis, right? And Mr. Kennedy's assassination led indirectly to the ouster of Malcolm X from his position in the Nation of Islam. So the ramifications of this man's assassination have echoed through history to our time. Mr. Kennedy's father, was going to investigate the murder of his brother and was running for president when he was assassinated literally on the campaign trail. So, if there's one thing we can say, without a doubt, Mr. Kennedy has courage. Because any man who's seen two of his ancestors murdered while being in political office and choose to run for political office anyway, and has already faced opposition from one of the two major parties. Well, we cannot say, we can say a lot of stuff about Mr. Kennedy, but we cannot call him a coward. So I respect that. I'll give him his props on that. Now, what we're going to do for those who aren't familiar with Mr. Kennedy, haven't heard him speak, we're going to listen to this clip of him. I can't remember what show it is. I need to find out so I can put it in the what's name so I don't get the old copyright thing. But we're just going to listen to him speak and answer some questions from a mixed person who has a black audience.
You're a rebel rouser. You know that, right? You're a little rebel rouser. You're starting some shit. I love it. Well, I'm only asking you 3 more questions. One is, first of all, my demographic is 99.9% African Americans, and so I understand when you become the president, you're gonna be the president of the United States. It's everybody. But what is it when I hear from my friends and people say, what will the president do? And I mean directly for us. I'm half black, half white, but black people. Like they said, there's Asian hate bills, there's LGBT, they got stuff. What is it? How does the president help us out just for black? Where does that come to help, particularly just for black? Would there ever be a black hate bill? Black people feel like they need a black hate bill because stuff happens with police and all sorts of things.
I mean, like I said, I've spent 35 years focused on these issues of how do you bring economic development. How do you integrate Black Americans into the American dream? My father, my uncle, both my uncles were part of this battle with Dr. King to make our country a true constitutional democracy, representative democracy for the first time in its history. And like I said at the beginning, people. I have a family legacy that has committed me to that issue. I have a personal legacy that does that. I'm going to need a lot of help, a lot of thoughtful people advising me to how to do this. But here's a couple things that I have learned.
Okay.
One is that, it's part of the liberal ethos to say that we have to end racism. And the way that you do that is by canceling people who have hate speech, et cetera, and by teaching kids not to be racist. To me, that's going to have a limited effect. It's aspirational, it's a good thing to do, but it's not going to solve the problem. What's going to solve the problem of racism is never going to disappear. It's innate in we're hardwired to be tribalistic. It's part of our evolution, right? To look at somebody, look at their differences and feel like you're part of a different tribe. But what you do, the remedy for that, is to give kids self-esteem so that racism doesn't bother them, so they're bulletproof against it. Okay. And how do you do that? You get self-esteem by doing esteemable things. You have to start by giving kids a good education. Our education system is a crime in this country. It's criminal enterprise. We are letting down these kids. They come out, they can't do anything with their lives. And we need to change that. And now with affirmative action gone, particularly high education, we need to put a lot of resources into the HBCUs. And that to me is critical. But the other issue is economic vitality of those communities. And the big issues in those communities, access to capital. There's ways to get capital to those communities through the black banks. And because there are some black banks left, and you can flood those banks with capital, those banks that can then make it available to the barbershop, to the guy who wants to start a yoga studio, to the preacher who wants to put an addition onto his church. and create economic activity in those communities. You know, when I was a kid, there was a lot of hatred. My uncle was the first Irish Catholic, the first Catholic president.
Yeah, that was.
There was a lot of hatred
Yeah.
toward Catholics at that time. There was a resurgence of the Ku Klux Klan when he ran. I was called all kinds of names when I was a kid, anti-Catholic slurs. I was called mackerel snatcher. That was a big one, or Mick, or whatever, and many others. It never bothered me because I had confidence in myself. I had an education. I knew my life was going to be okay. When somebody called me that, I didn't internalize it and say, there must be something wrong with me.
Right.
I looked at it and said, there's something wrong with that guy.
Nice.
You know, and that's what you want.
Right.
Black children to be invulnerable to racism. You can't get rid of it.
Right.
But you want to make them supermen so it bounces off them.
I like that.
And you do that by empowering them from when they're young, by giving them good education, giving them school choice, and and making sure that we educate the kids.
Well, out of all the candidates, you have a lot of celebrities that like you, especially the urban ones. I mean, Beanie Siegel, I say you're good friends with Louis Gossett Jr. I'm like, damn, everybody likes this guy. I'll do my research. I'm like, maybe I might have to get on that bandwagon. Choo choo. One person to try to get on the bandwagon, and he got blowback. What do you feel about? I think Ice Cube took a picture with you, and he got a lot of blowback. What do you feel about his effort of trying to be doing politics the way he's going about it? What do you
I love Ice Cube. I love that he's outspoken. Yeah. I love, that he's pushing issues. That he's a good role model for kids.
So it's funny, Ice Cube comes up again. Ice Cube's a businessman. So that was, for those of us who had not heard Mr. Kennedy speak, that's Mr. Kennedy. What I found interesting about that is, again, I like people who are, relatively transparent and as sincere as they can be. He said, hey, man, we're not going to get rid of racism. Right? You know what I'm saying? He just straight to the point. He's like, look, basically, what he said, it came from his subconscious mind. But if he's speaking as a European. He's saying our nature is, in essence, to be racist. Now, he didn't say our nature as in black people. He said our nature. So you're not going to get rid of racism. Again, I understand, and black people should understand, because here's a white man saying it. The nature of the European is to be xenophobic. Now, we understand the nature of black people to be xenophilic. That's been detrimental to us. I've talked about this in a lecture. But I appreciate his sincerity in telling us, hey, white people are racist. You know what I'm saying? That's really what he said. So I give him credit for that. The next thing he says is he talks about education and self-esteem. Now, we are in a unique situation as a captured people who are bombarded psychologically with self-hatred. That type of education we need to invert that or repel that isn't available or can't be administered by our enemies, regardless of their intentions. They don't have the capacity, right, to educate our children in a manner which will give them the self-esteem needed to repel the psychological attacks of which he talked about. So if Mr. Kennedy is talking about funding schools that we create, then yeah, that can be implemented. If he's just talking about reforming the schools that exist, that's not going to happen. Now, he did mention school choice. I'm not sure how that program will work, but if you're saying that I can get $5,000 for a voucher to take my son to Ujamaa-Shule, then oh yeah, because we can use that money to help fund to our schools or to Nation House or to Ackerman Institute in Atlanta. then yeah, that's a good program because that's helping us circulate our dollar in our community and pay our educators to educate our children properly. Now, if that's what he's saying, that's a good program. If he's just saying we're gonna make the schools that we got in your community better, nah, that ain't it, bro. that's not gonna get it done. I have no idea what his plan for implementing that would be because let's be honest, I don't expect him to win. In fact, I know he's not going to win, but we're trying to be somewhat comprehensive here, right? So we're just going to look at a little bit of his program that he has. We're going to look at it under what it says: racial healing, civil rights, right? It says nearly 60 years after the Civil Rights Act, the condition of Black people in America is better in many respects. However, in terms of income, wealth, education, infant mortality, home ownership, incarceration, health, and life expectancy, they still lag behind the rest of the population. Well, when you put it that way, the better in many respects. Where? You know what I'm saying? Because you put a lot of stuff up here that's at least as bad or worse. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. believes that this unacceptable situation is the result of the unhealed legacy of racism in this country. I concur with that assessment. We must take direct action to remedy it, not only for the sake of Black people, but for the well-being of the entire nation. He will appeal not to guilt or blame, but to the conscience of Americans of all races who want to repair the wounds of history. Here are some other policies he will adopt to accomplish it. I'm going to just say, I'm just being completely honest. Only those Europeans who understand how close America is to destruction are really interested in repairing the wounds of history. The vast majority who are ignorant, they don't care. And just being completely honest. Well, let's take a look at it. Number one, targeted community repair. Communities that were specifically targeted for destruction need to be specifically targeted for repair. During Jim Crow, Black banks, businesses, hospitals, schools, and farms were targeted for destruction. Racists knew that without these, the Black community had no chance of building wealth. Excuse me. We must set federal dollars aside to rebuild Black infrastructure. To rebuild who? Black infrastructure. We must set aside federal dollars to rebuild Black infrastructure. Look, let me just be honest. You can't argue with that, right? It doesn't matter if you think he can do it. You can't argue with the premise. He's one of the. I don't think I've even heard many politicians acknowledge the existence of Black banks or the existence of Black infrastructure being destroyed during Jim Crow. If y'all remember anybody else really talking about it like that, y'all let me know. I don't remember anyone talking like that. So this is someone who has, if nothing else, their research team has done their research and have approached it just by acknowledging that, talking about approaching it in a unique way, right? Go to prison reform, and police reform, which everybody talks about. R.F. Kennedy Jr. will undo the legacy of the 1994 crime bill that disfavors African Americans. I'm laughing because if these three people get on a stage to debate, it's obvious that he's going to slap Mr. Biden upside the head with this crime bill immediately when he has an opening. And he's going to remind people of that the whole election. I already see that coming. He will seek early release for nonviolent offenders. He will reorient the prison system around rehabilitation rather than punishment. His policy will be tough in the sense of keeping violent people where they can do no further harm, but generous in recognizing the fundamental desire of most human beings to live meaningful lives and contribute to society. I'm going to be completely honest. The most human beings part, I like that part because and I'm going to do a radical report on it later this week. When you have the type of crimes that black people are committing against black people, like those 8 people that murdered that young lady, Mahogany Jackson, or that situation down in Mexico, the types of crimes that we're committing against ourselves. I want those type of people to be prosecuted to the furthest extent of the law. I don't want any type of leniency. I don't want to hear no crying or excuses. When you as a black person commit a KKK like crime against other black people, I want the punishment that you get to be as if you were the KKK because you acted like the KKK. You see what I'm saying? I don't think I'm speaking out of turn with that. That may be controversial. I don't know, but I'm just saying we just can't we can't just be doing the most heinous, ridiculous crimes against each other when ain't nobody trying to put their hands on no hats, no euros, no Pedros, no Arabs, nobody. But we doing the most heinous, ridiculous, senseless, horrific crimes against each other. People got to be prosecuted to the first extent of the law or released to the community for community justice. Either or, I'm saying. But since we're not organized for community justice, we just can't have it, man. Can't have it. Says police reform. Kennedy will reorient police to serve and not occupy black communities. Good luck with that part. To keep communities safe rather than harassing their residents. Again, you got a mighty struggle with that. Appreciate the sentiment, though. The federal government will work with localities to change police culture with pro-community incentives, training, and de-escalation in cooperation with neighborhood organizations. The most important thing right there, I don't know how you can do it, but if you could get cooperation with community or neighborhood organizations, that's the only way. You would have to get people from the community, from the neighborhood, that know the neighborhood, that know who's who in the neighborhood, to work with the community organizations to say, hey, listen, let us handle this situation, or before you come charging in here, acting a fool, let us try to talk and reason with this person. I don't see that happening, but the fact that this is even a concept puts him ahead of, I believe, the other 2 candidates. Says working class / working poor. Because black people are disproportionately represented among the working class, RFK Jr.'s policies to uplift working class will disproportionately help the black community, which means Congress ain't gonna pass it. But anyway, these include a $15 federal minimum wage. If I'm not mistaken, the current minimum wage federally is half of that, if I'm not mistaken. In addition to this, we're talking about tax credits, child care subsidies, and home buying programs, the standard fare for the most part. Federally backed 3% mortgages will extend home ownership to millions of black families. Now, considering where interest rates are now, that will be significant. Schools, black children bear the brunt of shameful decrepitude of the schools in the cities and inner suburbs. RFK policy team is looking at ways to revive schools while supporting parents to choose other options. That choose other options part is probably more relevant now than it was before the pandemic, where people found themselves teaching their children themselves anyway. Says addiction afflicts all ethnic groups in America, but especially devastating in conjunction with the unique legacy of racism and trauma faced by black people. RFK will launch a nationwide network of low-cost, free addiction healing centers on organic farms available to anyone who sincerely wants to heal. One thing I can say, I know throughout his career, health has been a big issue to him, and he has largely been anti big pharma. He's been strong against big pharma way before this whole pandemic and things like that. In fact, I think, let me see if he talked about that. I thought he talked about that at the beginning of his policies, but I don't see it outlined here, so I won't go into it for time's sake. But he has been against big pharma. And I will say this. We're going to get to this article because this is something, let me find it, that put him on the radar for me, where I knew of him, but I wasn't paying attention to him as a politician. And then this situation occurred. It says RFK Jr. repeats quote unquote unfounded COVID-19 claims while defending himself from anti-Semitic accusations. Now, I'm not gonna lie. Whenever I hear that somebody's anti-Semitic, I gotta go and see exactly what they said. Let's see. Brother Dessalines says that's the only thing you like about him. What would that be, brother? Let me know. He said, it says independent presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. defended himself Friday from accusations of anti-Semitism while repeated allegedly unfounded claims about the jab. About C-19 and the jab. Okay, in an interview with CNN's Casey Hunt Kennedy, an avid opponent of the vaccines and the public health policies of Mr. Fauci. I mean, he wrote a whole book about Mr. Fauci. He does not like Mr. Fauci. Were intended to reduce the spread of the virus, push back on the notion that his previous remarks about C-19 that mentioned Jewish ancestry and history were anti-Semitic. So I know you're like, well, what did he say? Asked about his comments from July, in which he said, quote unquote, C-19 was ethnically targeted to spare Ashkenazi Jews and Chinese people. Kennedy acknowledged that some people would be disturbed by the comments, but he said he believes they certainly weren't anti-Semitic. Now, all right, let's stop right there. Because what I thought he said was that he believed, now this is what I thought he said, that he believed it's a biological weapon that was targeted at black and white people. I didn't hear the targeted to miss Chinese people. But if he did say he's targeted to miss Chinese people, then how come his comments aren't anti-Asian as well? Why is it only anti-Jewish? And then if he said Ashkenazi, what about the Sephardic? So if he didn't say all Jews and he said Chinese people, how is this thing anti-Semitic? I'm just asking. Says here, Ashkenazis trace their roots to Central and Eastern European and represent a majority of the U.S. Jewish population. While there are disproportionate rates of C-19 illness across different demographics, this has not been attributed to genetics or religion. I don't think he's attributing it to religion. He's saying, based on a study, that it affects black and white people more than it affects other people. Again, what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you where you can get the study, and then you can read the study. You can judge for yourself because you will be reading the study that he read, and then you can judge whether what he said was out of bounds or a lie, or he has misinformation. But this is a peer-reviewed study. So let's look at it, right? This is C-19 and illegal bioweapons activity and insiders revelation. The author is J. Bart Klassen, right? You can look this up in SciVisionPub.com. And I guess if you put in J. Bart Klassen, who is a scientist, this is his scientific peer-reviewed work. I am not a scientist. right? I can only look at it and make of it what I can make of it. You can download the PDF, and then you can see whether you agree with Mr. Clausen or Mr. Kennedy, or you think neither one of them know what they're talking about. But it's my job to give you the information and where you can get the information. Now, he says millions, if not billions, of people now believe that the world is under a biological attack. Billions of people? I don't know if I concur with that assessment. Millions of people? Probably so. He says a lot of blame has been placed on U.S. funding of bioweapons. Dr. Anthony Fauci, director of NIAID/NIH, has come under severe criticism for funding the infamous gain of function research. Right? That's how it starts off. Now, Mr. Kennedy read that and mentioned what he mentioned, and then he was considered anti-Semitic. Mr. Kennedy then had to meet with Jewish leaders to discuss this issue. These are the things that happen. Now, what we have to figure out is, did Mr. Kennedy change his position? And if he changed his position, what does that say about Mr. Kennedy's character? That when things go, when he gets heat, will he flip-flop? Will he run for cover? Now, again, we understand Mr. Kennedy's family history, and we understand that there's a reason why he might say, yeah, maybe I reel this back a little bit. But here's the thing. He put the information on the table and gave you the idea where you can find the information for yourself. And then you can argue with the documentation. Because as I have stolen from somebody else, you know what I'm saying? I admit I stole this saying. Documentation beats conversation. I'm not here to say that Mr. Kennedy or Mr. Clausen are correct. I'm saying you can go and download the document, and then you can make the assessment on whether Mr. Kennedy is correct or if he don't have no idea what he's talking about. But again, he was quoting the document. The attack came on Mr. Kennedy. Nobody asked him, how can I get the document so I can read it to see if you and this person, Clausen, are nuts? Right? Because that's the thing to do. The thing is not to attack the person and call them anti-Semitic. The thing is to attack the information and say, you are wrong, and this is why. But that has not been done. So we have to figure out, is the Mr. Kennedy before this controversy the same as Mr. Kennedy after this controversy? But one thing we can say, based upon him running for election, despite his family history, and him too saying that publicly, where people could record it, and maybe he didn't know he was going to record it. You got heart. You got courage. We don't think you can win, but the thing about it is, he has the possibility because of the Electoral College. Because, wait a minute, have I talked about it? Oh, wait a minute, hold on. Did I not talk about it? I don't think I brought it up, but I saw in an article where he said he advocates for reparations, that he's standing to the left of Mr. Biden on reparations. Now, again, is the Mr. Kennedy that said, hey, you know what? We definitely need to look at reparation. I think I support it. We have to figure out if that Mr. Kennedy before these meetings still exists. And The reality of the situation is the chances are that Mr. Kennedy has more of an ability to affect the election than to win the election. But here's the thing. It's the reason I'm bringing him up. There is a chance that if he shows the viability to garner votes and to get on the ballot in all 50 states, which means he has to get signatures and all that, right? And go through that process. And he affects this election, there is a chance that the Democrats will try to bring him into the fold and give him a position, which will then position him for a run later on as part of the Democratic Party, if he wants to do so. Right? So that's why I'm bringing him up, because he does not have, realistically, unless something really strange happens, a chance to win in this election the presidency of the United States running as an independent or third party person. But he has a chance to change history by, depending on what region, winning enough votes to affect the election one way or another. Because as an independent, he can type of shape and mold his platform based on where he's running. Right? So, brothers and sisters, what I really wanted to do was introduce everybody to and remind everybody about the three candidates, show their basic stances, their basic ideas, ideologies, and philosophies, and put that information on the table. And so we can be educated about whether or not who we want to vote for, if we want to vote. You want to use this as a teaching tape for your friends and family. However you want to utilize it, I just wanted to put that information out here. And so we can, if nothing else, we will not be ignorant of who these people are, what they have said, and what they have done, and where the said and done haven't matched up. Because a big part of politics is where words and actions don't match up, right? That's a big part of politics. So, again, you can follow me on Instagram at dc.radical1, on Twitter at dcradical_one. The OTW2, which is a Black-owned platform, is at DC Radical 1. If you would like to donate via Cashapp, $ DC Radical 1. Of course, this is the YouTube, and the email is dc.radical_1 at protonmail.com. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. I am your brother, DC Radical 1. And with that, I say a BB for ODA and straight black pride. Thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Also follow us on our other social media platforms. On Instagram, we're at dc.radical1. On Twitter, we're at dc_radical_one. And the Cash App is $ DC Radical 1. Again, thank you for subscribing. A big for ODA and straight black pride.